Hello, my name is Jason Teal, and let me first thank you for picking up these presets. I hope you enjoy them. Now, what I'm going to show you is, firstly, how to import them into Lightroom so that you can get started using them. Now, what I'm expecting you to have done already is to have unzipped the file and have located that on your computer, because that's going to come in handy really soon. So, what we're going to do, the easiest way to do this. Now, you've seen maybe some other videos on YouTube where they're going up into the Lightroom file or preferences and you have to restart Lightroom and whatnot. None of that's going to happen here. What we're going to do is just quickly import these. All right. So you can just go down here and right click anywhere in the preset area. Okay. And then you're just going to choose new folder. I'm going to call this Jason Teal presets. You can choose whatever you like, and it's going to create the folder. Now it's going to dump it in here. I think basically in alphabetical order. So you just go and find where it's put in the folder. So right up here above Jimmy McIntyre's presets, you're going to see it's put in the new folder, but there's nothing inside it yet. So what you're going to do is just click on it and import. Now I've already unzipped this file, so all I'm going to do is just highlight all of these and click import. And that's it. So now if we go into Jason Teal's presets, we have all of my presets. Now it's put a 2 in here because I have the similar names down in under my user presets, but again for you it'll just keep them all the same, and you can see that many of them do add quite a punch to the different situations. So I'll just take this time to kind of explain the purpose of each of these. Starting things off, we have what's called the bright white blossom, and I created this specifically for those underexposed shots where you're trying to bring out the beauty, say here, of a cherry blossom, which are popular in Korea, but no matter how hard you try, it just doesn't come out looking, you know, nice and bright. So with one click, we brought everything back, and you can see now we've got all the soft tones, and it's bright, it's soft, it's airy, and exactly what you need. Now, of course, you're not going to be always using this, because if you're using it on different photos, it could come out terrible. But like with all other presets, you know, for example, it's not working here, but that's okay. You can tweak it as much as you want, or again, so hit Control Z. You can use it in other instances where you might think it's useful. So again, we're looking at very underexposed photos that you're trying to bring back the color and the bright whiteness. So again, like this is really amped up. You can see we brought up the highlights and everything like that. Shadows are up too. So again, with all of these, you can just tweak them to your own liking, but this one is specifically made for underexposed shots where you're really trying to make it bright, white, and colorful. Now the next two I'm going to show you are Cityscape Blue and Da Boom. Now Cityscape Blue is just a quick fix for a generally even exposed photo like this one here. And when you click it, it's just going to straighten everything out and add in a bit of sharpness. So you can see how now it's not too crazy, but you got a little bit more pop. Everything's sharpened up nicely, and you've removed sort of any of the distortion from your camera lens. Now with Da Boom, it sort of adds in a more stylized grunge, I guess you would call it. And so if you're looking for something sort of ultra contrasty, this is the one that's going to, you know, maybe add in a little bit of artistic touch. But again, it's not for every photo, but if you're just asking for something that's a little bit more crunchy, I guess would be it, a little bit more contrasty, if that's your flavor, then Da Boom is going to do that. Okay, so this one is called Evening Colors, and it's going to bring back the saturation and add in a little bit of a, I guess like a pink or purplish tone to the sky. And it's best used for cityscapes or places where the overall image is sort of a little bit washed out like this one. And then we're going to bring back that sky. So again, we're just going to click on Evening Colors and boom. So it adds in this nice sort of, I would say, cool sunset kind of feel to it. And now this may not be for everybody, but for a place like the cityscape here in Ulsan, it works really well. But again, it has to be sort of the right conditions. So again, looking back, this sky is a little bit sort of overexposed. So we're just going to go up to Evening Colors and see if we can bring it back in. And yeah, again, you know, it's not bad. Again, it's a little bit overexposed, so we can just tweak this and bring back down the exposure. And again, so, you know, again, a lot of these presets, you know, they're not for every image, but for these sort of images that seem a little bit like washed out, these work quite well. So again, you know, if it's a little bit bland, you can just click on it, and there we have our cool sort of purplish evening color. For this one, it's a little bit more challenging to find a suitable image, but what Jason Teal Photo Pop does is it really isolates a section of the image and adds in a lot of contrast and color. So we can see here we've got a nice shot of the fall leaves, and this is at Tongdosa Temple. And we really want to sort of bring out this central leaf that's hanging here. And by doing so, we want to separate it from the background. And by clicking on Photo Pop, we're kind of warming up the scene, but you can see now how it's added in a bunch of crunch. It's highlighted the central area, so we've kept our highlights here, but we've darkened the background so it really does draw the eye into this leaf. And that's essentially what the Photo Pop does. So if you're looking at images where you have an isolated subject or you want to highlight that subject, Photo Pop is what's going to work. The next preset that we're going to look at is one called JT Pink Blossoms, and this was created to solve sort of a problem of making cherry blossoms and other photos a little bit more pink, for the lack of a better term. But it can be used in different situations. But the main thing is that if you have a sort of an overall shot with not a lot of color and you're looking for something bright and summery, Pink Blossoms is basically that. It just adds in a touch of pink to the highlights and kind of changes the overall look. And the reason I've done this one is that, especially here in Korea, Japan, and other places, there's a lot of blossoms, but at times when we want them to be colorful, they're sort of bland. And this just added in a little bit of a punch. And it just adds in a touch. So if you jump to other photos where you have maybe a little bit of blossoms, or you just want something, it just adds in a little touch, makes it a little bit brighter, and then just adds in that. So it's not too powerful, but it just adds in that little touch of pink to the highlights, which you may like. Okay, so the next couple of presets that we're going to take a look at are really for these bright blue sky days that you really want to emphasize the whole summer or bright feeling of this sort of scene. So if looking at this picture, we've got a blue sky up above and lots of flowers, and to be honest, this could be anything really, but I chose this sort of scene so that you can really see what these presets do. Now, Midday Pop does exactly that. This was taken around lunchtime, so it just really gives it that burst of color and accentuates the overall look, especially the blue skies. So we're just going to Control Z to remove that. More blue skies. You may or may not like this, but if you're really looking to emphasize the blue sky and sort of cool things down a bit, now this may not be the the exact image that you want to use this for, but just for the sake of simplicity, you can see what it does here. If I were to edit this further, I would just sort of bring up the exposure a little bit, and if you want, just warm it up a tad. But that's about it. So you can see now it really does bring out those blue skies and everything like that. Now, just jumping back to reset everything. The last one is Pop Goes JT in this little bunch, and all it does is really add in a bunch of contrast. So you can see the shadows here have been darkened, but the blue sky and everything has been accentuated, as well as the color. So again, those are the three. Just to review, we did Midday Pop, More Blue Skies, and Pop Goes JT. The last one, I guess, that we could look at here is under the Ulsan Walking Bridge. And it's another one that sort of darkens everything up, but it adds in a lot of contrast and blue skies. So we're sort of pushing this one to the limits. But again, it will work for different scenes that we're going to look at later on, perhaps cityscapes as well. Okay, the last few presets that we're going to look at are more for cityscapes, which is what I really like to shoot. The first one that we're going to look at is night time lapse. Now, I chose this one simply because in some cases you do need to brighten up a city image. Now, this was taken just before sunset, so it is really bright. But as you're shooting time lapse, and you'll see here, once we get into sort of the darker blue hour areas, it does get a little bit darker, and you'll need that pop. So if we go to here and we go to night time lapse, okay, you'll see that it just brings out the color in everything, and this is probably like where it really is useful. The others that we can do, I'm just going to reset this. Old City is one if you're shooting, say, further into the night, and we'll just go into a little bit down the way here, where the sun has gone down, it's darker. Old City 2 is where you're really going to jack up those highlights and really make it look like it's a bright night. Okay, and then the last one we're going to do is Ulsan Walking Bridge, and the Walking Bridge is this famous bridge in Ulsan, but I sort of really like the look of it. And what it does is it just sort of adds in a nice effect. So we're just going to jump back to an unedited photo, and again, like most of my presets, you're adding in a lot of color, you're adding in a bit of horizon leveling, and you're also adding in some highlights adjustments. So again, there's a ton of great presets in this pack. Thank you again for picking them up, and I hope that this little walkthrough will help show you the best usages for these. Thank you.